to the Daedric Podcast. Once again, I am joined by our co-host Tom.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And let me put on the thing. Yes, there we go. Today we're going to talk about the various races we can find in the Elder Scrolls. Yes.
Yeah. We're not only going to mention the playable races, the 10 main ones that you get to play as in the various Elder Scrolls games, but we're also going to mention their ancestors, maybe even their descendants, and some of the more niche and enigmatic species that live in Tamriel, and the other places on Nirn.
Yeah, that's very true.
More to them later.
More of that later, exactly. And during that, the footage that we will be seeing on screen will, my playthrough will be basically finishing the College of Winterhold questline, as well as doing several of the basically master questline quests for the spells. The ritual quests.
Oh yeah, when you hit a certain level of
to get the most powerful spells.
Spell school in Skyrim, you cannot get the spells further. You have to finish a special quest to unlock the master spells.
Exactly.
Which the most of them is just a big ass AOE.
Way too much charge up and everything. Yeah. And
apart from the shock destruction.
That's the electric lightning beam.
Which is arguably one of my favorite spells.
Exactly.
It's like a big ass Kamehameha blast, like a steady stream of electrical energy from both hands. You get to wind it up. It's like
it looks pretty cool.
Amazing.
And Tom's playthrough will be focusing on.
I am going to be finishing the Knights of the Nine DLC in Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and later near the end, I'm going to venture into the special and very also random land of Shivering Isles.
Yes.
I'm going to start the Shivering Isles DLC, and we'll be ending it there.
Yes. All right. So let's get into it and start both of our footages. And then we can start talking as well.
Yeah, I'm going to just briefly introduce the first section that we're going to talk about. And these are the men of Nirn. Now, first, a little bit of distinction. The various races that live or inhabit Nirn can be...
How do you put this? Yeah.
They can be put into categories. Yes. First, we have the men, which are just various types of humans or human-like people. Then we have the elves or Dwemer, which are elves. Then we have a small little category which have a bit of both. Which is the Akavir. Those are the people that inhabit the mysterious eastern continent of Akavir. And then we have the beast races.
The beast folk.
The beast folk, which inhabit all of Nirn.
Yeah, they can be
and some of them are actually sentient.
Sorry?
And some of them are actually sentient.
Yes. Well, yeah. Most of these are specific. The beast folk are the specific ones that are sentient. The level of intellect they have is debatable.
That's true.
So we will start off with the men. Take it away, Tom.
Yep. So first up, I'm going to quickly mention where all the men actually came from, which is the Elnofe. Now, the Elnofe are a type of Etada. Etada is one of the original spirits that came to being when the actual plane of existence, Mundus, where Nirn is, came into existence. When Magnus, the Grand Architect, left. The majority of Et Ada actually left with him, but those who stayed became the Elnofey. The quote-unquote strong Elnofey that actually managed to be bundled up together, they became the Aldmer, which are the very first elves. And those who were weaker were scattered across Tamriel, or scattered across Nirn, and they became something called the Wanderers. These Wanderers and the Altmer, or the original Elnofey, they waged war against each other. And during this war, the whole face of Nirn was reshaped, time and time over. All the continents came to being, and the first oceans began to flood the surface. As I said, the old Elnofey became the Altmer, and the Wanderers, over time, became the various first men races. And those being the Atmorans on the north side, in their original content of Atmora, the Yokudans on the content of Yokuda, and the Seisi, the snake people of east from Akavir. Now, let's talk about the Yokudans, shall we? The Yokudans are, as a standalone race, not much is known about them. But what we can say is they are eerily similar to Redguards, who are actually their descendants. The Redguards, who currently inhabit the continent of Hammerfell, are dark-skinned, wiry-haired people who are born to battle, shaped by their harsh homeland of Yokuda, which was said to be one big desert. And honestly, Hammerfell is not much better. They are harsh people. They are skilled seamen. So that's
skilled sailors.
seamen with an E and an A, like sailors.
Yes.
And also, fun fact about them: in the Yokuda, they had an emperor always, and they always had an emperor, and the emperor had his royal guards, and these royal guards were usually comprised of a special type of warrior called the sword singer. Now, sword singers, or sword singing, also known sometimes as the way of the sword, was a martial tradition developed in Yokuda, and I would compare this to the Jedi, if you know Star Wars, maybe even somewhat to samurai of the Japanese culture. Well, this martial tradition was their whole life, and it was very religious-like, where they honed their souls, and if they actually were good enough, they could manifest a sword from their own soul, and then they would become something called the Ansei. Because of the Ansei, or a group of Ansei that rebelled, the Yokuda actually synced. There are two theories about this, either because it was to geographical happenings around the area, or the actual Ansei group. The Yokuda synced, and during the first era, the Red Guards of Yokuda had to flee to Tamriel and inhabited. They went to Hammerfell. Now, in Hammerfell, they met a group of people called the Needs. Needs are another big precursor group but they are not mentioned in the creation myth with the Elnofey. That is because, again, there are various theories about this, mainly two. The first one is, if you played Skyrim, you are familiar with the mountain called the Throat of the World. There is a legend called the Song of Return, which refers to the first people actually coming from the throat of the world. The legend says that the sky breathed life to earth, and from the throat of the world came the first men. These are speculated to be the first needs. The other theory is that they came from Atmora, but more to that later. So these needs, or the original people, they are not a single group. They had a lot of tribes. The tribes inhabited all the northern provinces and the eastern ones, like Black Marsh, Cyrodiil, Hammerfell, and all northern Tamriel, like High Rock, Morrowind, and Skyrim. So when Redguards came to Hammerfell, they met the Duraki and the Keptu. The Duraki were a tribe that resided in the Karaglorn region and had their seat of power in Skyreach. Their warriors followed the ancient Natick High King Durak against the invading Ankara, but met their downfall after Virmalil the Betrayal slew the council of the Needy King, and fell to the tribe of Yokudan Onslaught. So the Duraki were actually bested by these Redguards. And the Keptu, or the Men of Cat, were a tribe who settled in central Hammerfell and near the Geral Mountains bordering Cyrodiil, and they are inconsistently described as being needs and being separate from needs. Here is probably where I should mention that all these men, it is possible that they were interchangeable to a point. If you know about the whole Homo sapiens, Homo neanderthalis thing, when we don't know how they actually went extinct, and it is speculated that we actually interbred, and some of the cultures that we have now are quote unquote descendants of the Neanderthal of the Neanderthals. The same thing could be said here, where they might have just interbred and phased out of existence, and this is especially true when we talk about the Needs and the Nords, because there is a lot of mention of something called the Cyronords or the Cyronids. So this suggests that they actually interbred at some point or another. So that's the Hammerfell tribes. But first, we will talk about the Black Marsh. Black Marsh, as we all know, is an extremely inhospitable place to live in. And for some unknown reason, 4 Nedic tribes, the Horval, Kofri, and Orma, decided to live there. Safe to say, they didn't last long and were all wiped out by the Katan flu. Maybe apart from the Kofri, or also known as the Kofringi. These were silver-skinned tribal people indigenous to Black Marsh, and they were once believed to be native to Tamriel, but also they were also known to be avid sailors, and they were sailing as far as to Hammerfell And because of them, the cat and flu actually spread so fast. They are actually featured in the Elder Scrolls Online. And sadly, it is not known if they actually prevailed to this day or not, because some of them allegedly had survived the big flu. Now, let's talk about the Cyrodiil part. The Natick tribes in Cyrodiil were the Algemna and Alharet, all mentioned in a pocket guide to the Imperial. Oh, I mispronounced that, sorry. A pocket guide to Empire. Sorry, that's the name of the book. They were among the men herded as slaves by the Aeliads from across all the Nibben Bay and Cyrodiil. All of these Cyrodiilic Natick tribes were actually enslaved by the Aeliads, the Wild Elves. And thanks to the St. Elsian Slave Rebellion that we talked about previously, they were actually freed. That doesn't mean they survived, though, because Tamriel is a hostile place, and especially the men of Gi know this good, because once they were actually freed from the Aelids, they were destroyed by a long-forgotten insect god. That sounds pleasant. And next are the Parina, who were a Nedic tribe, actually in Cyrodiil and Hammerfell. And these are known to be astrologists, and because of them, we have a race called the Celestials. Their belief in the stars and the science of astrology was actually so strong that they managed to create a race of godlike beings. And last up, we have the northern ones. These are the Manmeri, which was a name that was given to Nords by it was a Nord. I'm slurring my words here. It was a name given by the Nords to the Proto-Bretons that were remnants of an earlier and lost Nedic tribe in High Rock. The early Nedic people who arrived in the region stumbled upon the highly sophisticated Aldmer culture and were quickly overwhelmed and absorbed, becoming a mongrel race or an half-elf, half-human race. Now we know them as Bretons, the original inhabitants of the High Rock. Bretons I would describe as the most basic European race that we know. They are modeled after, the real-life Bretons, which is part of France. They are the classic knights in the castle with princesses, kings, and all that. Intrigue and drama. Now, from Bretons, it is speculated that the Reach folk came from. The Reach folk are people of, again, Nedic descent, native to the Reach region in Skyrim, and they actually extend to High Rock and Hammerfell, and they have close ties to Breton. And some of them are actually speculated to be descendants from the Keptus. And according to them, the human tribes dwelled within the caves in the Druidic Mountains long before the conquest of Mer and Nords. Another race are the Men of Grief, who are the original inhabitants of the Falkreath region in Skyrim. But sadly, they succumbed to a civil war. And last up, we have Ronfa. Ronfa were a nomadic, particularly vicious clan among those who invaded the Stonefalls region of Morrowind, and they were known for branding both people and items captured in battle. Now, if you'll excuse me, I will be back in a minute. I have a small emergency here.
All right, I'll try to take over for you.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. So we've mentioned basically the descendants of the Natick folk. What's also interesting to note is that there is a Reach folk tribe which is said to be descendant of the Keptu. If you still remember that. And if we go back a bit, the one theory, like we said, was that the Needs came from the throat of the world. And other theories say that they're actually just descendants of the Atmorans. Now, if we go back to the Atmorans, obviously they are originally from Atmora, which is far to the north, a cold land with lots of giants. Different. In fact, some theory even speculates that the Atmorans were first a more sort of ancient giant race, which had both intellect and a giant size. And when I say giant size, I don't mean the giants that you see in Skyrim. Now I'm talking about mountain-sized giants, like really big. And so the theory states that we had these ancient giants, and then they split up into what is now known as the Giants and the Norns, or the Proto-Nords technically, and they moved to Skyrim, where they started to spread out and start to intermingle, and eventually also had a separate tribe which became the Need. So you could say that one theory is that the giants actually have a similar descent to humans, despite the fact that giants actually also have more mare-like features, where they have pointy ears.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you back? Okay.
Yeah, I'm back. We can actually talk about these together.
Yeah.
I think if we share some tidbits here and there, it adds to it. So, as you said, Atmorans originally, it's never stated how big they were. You get to meet some Atmorans in Skyrim when you go to Sovngarde.
Yes, you get to see Isgramor.
There's Isgramor and stuff and he is actually tall.
Yeah.
And also the guy that guards the fucking whale skeleton that you have to cross. What's his name?
Yeah, behind Shore, you mean? Not Shore. Tsun.
Tsun, yeah, Tsun, and he's fucking 3 meters or something like that.
More like 2 feet.
And yeah, those are that's probably how big the Atmorans were.
Yes, the moment after they split away from ancient giants, that is.
Yeah. The ancient giants. The thing with the ancient giants is that we don't have any explanation to them apart from the Elder Scrolls Legends card.
Yeah.
The one card that has them. But that doesn't mean they're not canon. Because when you see that enormous thing, yeah, that's probably what I will believe.
There is, there is a book that says talks about it in Elder Scrolls Online, Giants at Discourse.
Oh.
Where they mention that, the giants that we have in Skyrim have a common ancestor with the Norse. The Atmorans were huge and smart. Norse descendant from these ancient folk became smaller, intelligent people that we know today.
Quote smaller. Still being the tallest race.
And then the giants, on the other hand, became large, stupid creatures that we watch from a distance.
Yeah, but when we say stupid, we don't mean
well, compared
really
to the Nords.
Compared to a normal person, yes, but they are I would say they're on the level when I mentioned the Neanderthals and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I would say they're on that level.
Yeah, they're moderately intelligent.
They are tribalistic.
Yes.
They know how to herd animals. They herd mammoths.
Yes, and they fashion tools and clothes for themselves. Have a bit of.
They know They know what art is.
Yes. They have their own art. They even have
the mammoths and carve their tusks.
Yeah, and they even have their own language. So
they have their own language. They have their own designated burial grounds.
Yeah.
They actually live separately. The giants, if you find a camp, there's gonna be one giant at max, 3 of them.
Yeah.
But they have their own set burial grounds where, when they feel like they're going to die, they're going to actually venture to these burial grounds and die there, so they can later be buried by their folk.
Yes.
Or when they actually don't make it there, the other giants will carry them there and bury them.
Yes. Another interesting fact about the giants is that apparently the female giants, also known as giantesses, are actually more powerful but less common than the males, and that's why in some tribes you will see actually the female being the matriarch,
which may have been just an excuse when they originally wrote that, because in Skyrim all the giants that you find are the same model, which is a balding and bearded man or a male.
Yeah. Well, they have different outfits.
There are no females, so they might have just said, "Okay, females are rare. Fuck this."
They did show them in Elder Scrolls Online, but anyway.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, they do show up in Elder Scrolls Online.
But the thing is, there's a lot of subspecies of giant.
Yeah.
And the classic Skyrim giant, which is actually only inhabits Skyrim, is just one of them. There is another one that is way more interesting, and that is the sea giant, which is only in Elder Scrolls Online, but they are big and smart. So, which leads me to believe that they are way more closely related to the original Atmorans than Nords or the actual Skyrim giants. Because when you look at the armor of the sea giants in Elder Scrolls Online, compared to the just a loincloth that the Skyrim giants have, these giants have intrigued and layered armor. They wear jewelry, chainmail, and have scale mails and stuff like that. They have leather strap boots, and they also incorporate Stalrim material into their armor. Stalrim, for those of you that don't know, is this unmelting ice, unmelting magical ice.
Yeah, that basically seems to act more like metal than actual ice.
Yes.
And it's created with an ancient technique of the Atmorans, so that also brings it back closer to the theory that these sea giants are closely related to the Atmorans.
Yeah, and they are also in online. They are they actually come from these big ass ships, so they know how to sail and stuff like that. They have their own speech, and they are shamanistic in nature when they actually place down totems and they call lightning and stuff like that. They know how to control storms, which points to them actually using magic, which requires a higher brain function. So they definitely were more intelligent. In my opinion, they are the closest thing to actual Atmorans that we get to.
Yeah, basically.
That we get to see.
Maybe they were a bit prettier, like the Nords, but yeah.
Yeah. The sea giants are descendants of Atmorans. They are not Atmorans themselves. Like
exactly.
We get to meet Atmorans in games, but they are just scaled Nords.
Yeah, basically.
They don't have their own unique models, which they should ? But we're not here to judge that.
Yes.
And also with the mention of the sea giants, just quickly mention the frost giant, which is another type of giant that we get to meet. The thing is,
we should talk about
the
that
frost
later,
giants
though.
don't look. Yeah, I know that we should talk about it later, but we just mentioned we're just talking about the giants, so why the hell not? Because they are again a sentient race, and they could be viewed as very similar to the classic Skyrim giant, but they have way more eyes for some reason, and they are actually a beast.
Yeah, it seems that they're somehow perhaps they interbred with frost trolls of Skyrim.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Because they have so frost trolls have 3 eyes, and giants have 2 eyes, and frost giants have 5 eyes.
Yeah, with two big ones and 3 small ones. There's also their skull boasts a pair of curved horns.
Yes, which neither species has, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yep. I would say that they look like Yetis, kinda.
Yeah, it's probably what they were inspired by. But
yeah. They are extremely elusive and rarely seen in Tamriel, and they are called cousins, quote unquote, of the common giant. And as you said, they are way physiologically they're way closer to the actual frost trolls.
So who knows what happened there? Maybe one day a researcher in the Tamriel will research that. Even though they are extremely rare, because they used to be more prevalent in Skyrim and Solstheim, but they were mostly hunted. So the few that were left started going into hiding. That's why at the time of Morrowind, there were only 3 known frost giants in Solstheim. 2 of which were basically already dead, and the last one you kill as yourself. And
what's his name?
Karstag or something like that.
Karstag, yeah.
And in Skyrim, when you go to the Forgotten Valley, where the last of the Valmer are also present, there's 4 or 5 of unnamed frost giants as well. Who were smart enough to steal the paragons, the giant jewels. So it seems that they have some kind of intellect, at least.
Also, I just noticed I didn't follow your.
No, you did not follow it at all. My original.
Yeah, I panicked.
All right. That leaves you with Akaviri. So.
Yep. So next we should probably talk about Akavir, which is the easternmost continent that lies east to Tamriel, and we don't have many resources that actually tell us what is going on in Akavir. We have 3 books, and we have records of the various Akaviri invasions that happened to Tamriel. But anyway, first up is the dragons. Yes, you heard right. Dragons actually come from Akavir. And Akavir translated literally means the Dragonland. Although there are some ancient tales of dragons coming from Atmora, it is possible they just moved from Akavir to Atmora and spread from there. Nonetheless, they are large-scaled creatures, easily several times larger than any human or elf. They have long, slender extremities with thin bat-like wings and ridges of spikes along their back. Dragons have 3 sharp talons and 1 vestigial digit, known as the Dewclaw, on each of their legs. Now, dragons are sentient and very, very smart. They have their own language, they have their own alphabet, they know how to write, which is evidenced by the various dragon walls or ward walls that you find in Skyrim.
Those seem to be written by the Nords and the Atmorans that were under the control of the dragons. But
I always thought it was just the dragons like scratching it with the Dewclaw.
no, I think they taught it to the Nords.
Yeah, they taught it, but because I thought that the alphabet was made so they can scratch it.
Yeah, no, that's what it's based on. But like, there's, I don't know. If you actually read the word walls, it's all written. It's basically like, oh, this person died here, that person died here. It's never like a dragon name.
Yeah, it's a basic. It's like a set book, like regarding historical events and stuff like that.
Anyway.
So anyway, dragons are also well known for their affinity to magic. It is not known how they can speak or fly because they don't have any lips and their tongue is, well, reptilian. So how they speak is unknown, but they move their mouths when they speak. So it's not like a mind projection thing. They actually somehow just manifest these sounds. And they also should not be able to fly because their bodies are massive and their wings are
not big,
tiny.
Yeah,
they're thin. They're like they're bat-like wings.
And
bats fly because
it's also
light,
like if they were like most flying things in the real world, they have hollow bones. But if those dragons that size had hollow bones, they wouldn't be that much of a threat. But they are.
Yeah, as a mace to the head would make a quick work out of them, which it certainly does not, because the bones and scales of dragons are actually used to craft various weaponry and armor.
And they're very heavy.
Yeah. Also, dragons are thought to be, dragons are immortal, as they are children of Akatosh, the god of time. They are specially attuned to the flow of time, and they feel an innate urge to dominate others, which is really hard to overcome, as evidenced by the cool guy Pathrunax, which actually tells you this, that he had to repent basically from his dragon nature to be as he is now. The thing is, in the mind of the dragon, that they need to conquer to be right is so heavy that in their minds, being powerful and being right is the same thing, and they actually love debating. And when two dragons fight, they're not fighting; it's a heated debate because their words actually summon up magic.
Yes.
And if the dragon says fire, well, fire is going to come out of his mouth.
Yes. So basically, the shouts and the thum are basically just swears in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. They're like, you fucking bitch.
Yeah. We should slightly hurry it up with though, because
oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, so quickly, Kamal are the ice demons from Akabir. They live on the very northern side. They are frozen for the entirety of the year, but when summer comes, they actually liven up and attack their southern neighbors, mainly the Kapotun and the Tankmo. They actually invaded Skyrim once and were caught between Morrowind and Skyrim with the respective armies defeating them. Kapotun are the tiger dragon people who live in Akavir. If they are related to the Khajiit is not known, but they are one of the 4 races there, and they Kapotun and Saesi have a fierce rivalry between them. And the leader of Kapotun, Toshraka, is said to be the first one of his race to actually becoming a dragon, and the whole race is known as the dragon, the tiger dragon people. So next up, Tangmo. Tangmo are the monkey people from the Isle of Thousand Monkeys in Akavir, and they are said to be stupid. That's it.
Well, I mean, they're also said to be very kind and generous, but
yeah, they're stupid, kind, generous. They're the good guys. They're like the what you call it, the himbo. They are himbos.
Wow. And it really, when you hear the other races, it sounds like a very violent place. So it's kind of amazing that they are still around.
Yeah. And last up, the Saesi, the snake people, who are actually the only quote-unquote men on Akavir. Some describe them as normal human-looking individuals. Some describe them as having the upper body of a man and the lower body of a snake, and some even as full-on snakes. So it is not known how they actually look like. Maybe they have different forms. Some even say they are shapeshifters. Nonetheless, their culture is heavily inspired by the samurai culture of Japan. When they invaded 2 times Tamriel, they actually established the blades, and the Saesi are known to be skilled dragon hunters, and they are said to be the ones that ate all the men of Akavir, and they also ate the red dragons, and the black ones fled to the Kapotun and teach their leader how to become a dragon.
Very aggressive. Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Well then, we're now moving on to the elves, also known as Mer. Now, to give everyone a bit of a refresher, in the beginning there was the Elnofe. There was technically even specifically 12 types of Elnofe, and together they were the 12 races that inhabited the entirety of Nirn, Mundus, and the ones that were specifically of Tamriel, that particular region, were also called the Elnofe of Tamriel, who became the first Mer, the elves. Now, the elves, if I can find a page for it, I have too many pages. Yes, the Mer are, well, because they are basically the original inhabitants of Tamriel, they often see themselves a bit as, superior to everything else. And even more so, like the first like real Elnofe that became the first elves are also known as the Aldmer, with a D. And the Aldmer first inhabited their continent of Aldmeris, a lost city continent called Aldmeris.
Where did that French come from?
Which French?
The Aldmeris.
Aldmeris, yeah, oh right, like that, yeah. Aldmeris, yeah. But their land was completely destroyed, and so they went north and found the Somerset Isles. And in like several years in the future, they tried to go back, but they couldn't find it for some reason. And well, there's actually very little known about their appearance and their culture, but the Aldmer, which are direct descendants of them, consider themselves the closest related to it. So we can assume that they're closely, they're very similar to what we now know of the Aldmer. And that brings me up next.
If it's if it's at least like similar to the Atmorans, we could assume that the original Aldmer were, since they were supposed to be god-ish, like if you know what I'm
Goldish
suggesting, god-ish, like because Elnofey were at Ada.
Yeah, well, they were closely related to Ada.
Closely related, yeah. And the Altmer with a T, they revere all the other races and like think of themselves as higher because they believe that the Aldmer were closely related to gods. They think of themselves as like more perfect.
Yeah, I mean
like more divine.
I mean the Aldmer, the very name of it. It's technically Mer means folk, and Ald means the first or the elder. So the first folk. So yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Altmer.
So if it's any similar to the Atmorans, we can assume that they were just taller Altmer.
Yes, taller Altmer, and also very golden skin, golden hair.
Yeah.
But from the Aldmer, we have several subspecies that divided themselves from the Aldmer for various reasons. First, we have the Dwemer, who are a bit more palish in skin, but are also known to have like heavy black beards, which other Mer are not so known to have. They're not very hairy, but the Dwemer were. Dwemer, so basically the last part, Mer, is again folk, but the Dwem, is it often is roughly translates to people of the deep, basically deep delving, and they are unlike the Aldmer. They were very much not interested in religion. They actually believed that they shouldn't worship any kind of divines. They should instead just aspire to be like to do what they did, because the Dwemer were of the belief that the creators of Nirn were just architects of some way, and therefore it should be achievable to get the same level of technology and capabilities, and that's why.
And to some extent, like they were right. Like Magnus, for example, is literally named the Grand Architect, and they were talking like about the plans and stuff like that. And it's not like they didn't believe in the divines. It's not a matter of belief in Nirn. It's a fact.
Exactly.
It's more like they didn't respect.
No, they didn't think that they deserved worship, basically.
Yes, they just thought of them as, oh, this is a powerful being. I want to be as powerful as he is.
Yes.
I'm not going to bow before him and suckle on his toes because he is special.
Yeah. So they basically left the Somerset Isles and they went all the way to the mountains of Morrowind and Skyrim, and even like some tribes all the way to High Rock and Hammerfell. They just like to stay in those mountains, I guess. And yeah, well, if you want to know more about the Dwemer, then there's another video all about the Dwemer and the Falmer. Which brings up the next one, which is the original Falmer. And Fall in this case means snow or white. Or snow elf, basically. That's the more common name used for them because of what happens to them eventually. But the Falmer were actually culturally very similar to the Aldmer. They just had a slightly different interpretation of their gods, and they were basically a bit more kind-hearted, as it were. They also have, over time, they basically developed a very white skin and white hair, and yeah, when
I mean, they're called the Snow Elves, so having a white skin and white hair is...
so
it's not that big of a
no,
stretch.
exactly. And
When you talk about the gods, like that's a thing to note with every race that we talk about. The basic pantheon, like the quote unquote the imperial pantheon with the divines that we discussed in the 10th episode, that's like the base set, and all the other races have their own pantheons, and this either has the same deity but renamed, or a different version of the deity, or they may merge the deity, two deities together, or they just from one they make two, or they just disregard some, and maybe even exchange them for a Daedra, or use a totally different deity like Ifre, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
The god of nature.
Yes. So the Snow Elves basically worship the same Aedra gods as the Aldmer, and also a few different interpretations of different aspects of those Aedra. We'll talk about their end later. Let's instead now focus on the Aelids. The Aelids, they had a big impact on history. They were also known as the Wild Elves, the Heartland Elves, or the Heartland High Elves, and they were a more dominating version of elves. They ruled over the entirety of Cyrodiil, and as previously mentioned, they like to enslave others. Funnily enough,
a favorite pastime.
Yes, the Aldmer technically also enslaved some already, namely the Goblin King, which I will mention later, or you will mention them later. So basically, enslavement was already a thing, and I guess the Aelids really liked the idea of enslaving others, so they went to Cyrodiil and started enslaving everything they could find. And they were a lot more. I think the main thing that made them different from the Aldmer is that they worshipped Daedra rather than the Aedra. They were also. They believed the world was composed of 4 elements: earth, water, air, and light, which also exists in Altmer religion.
Yeah, the thing with the light is interesting, because light to the Aelids was the perfect element, and this can be viewed in their architecture, where the light is always the centerpiece of the room. Like their chandeliers and their wells and stuff like that. The light is really the thing that all the room like points to, and even their weaponry and their culture revolved around it, where they worshipped pieces of Aetherius, which is basically just pure light or pure magical energy that fell from the sky. And they made Varla and Velkit stones from it.
Yes.
Which are the 2 major artifacts that you can find in any Aeliad ruin.
Let me quickly correct myself earlier. They actually did worship Aedra and Daedra. They just didn't consider the Daedra to be bad or good. They just said, like, they just are. And the specific Daedra that they worshipped were actually Meridia, Moloch Ball, Maroons Dagon, and Hermaeus Mora. And last I want to mention is that appearance-wise, they were actually very similar to the Aldmer. Still golden-skinned, gold hair. They also had dark hair already. But the ones that were more of worshipping the Daedra were the Chimmer, or the Chimar, whatever you want to call them. They followed. It's a group of Aldmer that follows the prophet Velothi, Veloth, sorry. And they left the Somerset Isles and went all the way to Morrowind, because that was that was their promised land, as it were. And they actually worshipped the Daedra more, but they made a distinction between the good Daedra and the bad Daedra. That's why you also have the the House of Trouble, with the 4 Daedra that cause the most trouble, which were actually considered more of a test to the Kimmer people. They were golden skinned still, and you can actually see the tribunal, the 3 gods. Almalexia still looks exactly like the Kimmer. Vivek is half Kimmer, half Dunmer. And then finally, Cyrodiil has more of a Dunmer look. So those races are considered, along with the Aldmer, are the ancient elven races, the ancient ones. But if we move on, then we have the Aldmer that basically developed into the Aldmer, and we've discussed it before. Some theories state that the Bosma descended from the Aldmer. Others say they were more from the Aldmer. But what makes them different is that they were kind of fed up with the high society, high standards, like considering themselves so much better than the rest of the world. And they wanted to be more in touch with nature, and that became the Bosma.
In touch with the nature is certainly true today.
Yes.
Because Bosmer actually have like this religious
connection with
connection to nature, where they are forbidden from even eating anything like plant-like.
They're basically the opposite of veganists.
Yeah, and they actually only eat meat, and they do like ritualistic cannibalism and stuff like that.
Yep. And Bosmer means wood elves, as they are. Yeah, they love their trees, that's for sure. They are a bit shorter than the other elf races, quite a bit shorter. And
they are the shortest.
Yeah. And they've got more of a tan, probably because they spend more time outside. Although they have more trees around them, so it counters that. Yeah, you can have a whole discussion about how they are in contact with nature and the wild hunt that they have. But they were actually
the wild hunt was the thing that I mentioned last podcast with the wars and stuff. It's the thing that the Britons can actually, the Bosmer, can actually do. They don't like it. They think it's like barbaric, and it's their last resort thing. When they perform this ritual and they all come together and transform into this mass of hatred, and they that thing shape shifts into different animals, and it keeps the animals keep changing, and it kills somebody.
It's in a way you could say that is a proof that they still have a bit of Elnofe magic in them. Some of the old chaotic magic.
Because that's not like a normal magic. It's like the creation-ish magic.
Yes. Okay. So next one we have the Orsimer, also known as the Orcs. The Pariah folk is what it translates to. Orsimer. And it's actually interesting. They are descendant of the Aldmer, because it started out as a group of Aldmer who they wanted to just expand. They wanted to live elsewhere. They kind of worshipped their own god, Trinimac. Trinimac. There we go. And they also felt like the Kimmer were doing something wrong. Like, oh no, you shouldn't be following the Daedra. And one of their Daedric princes that they followed, namely Boethia, was kind of upset with that. So he got into a fight with the Aldmeri god Trinimac, and Boethia beat Trinimac, eating him, and then, as they say, shitting him out. And that excrement is what became the Daedric prince Malakath. And during that event, basically the Orsimer people were transformed into these green hulking beasts.
Yeah, it's said that they were transformed in mockery of their foul belief or something.
Yeah, exactly. So poor orcs. The orcs have elven blood, but because of their green skin and their tusks, their lower jaw that's sticking out, they are common, usually considered even beast folk, and specifically the Goblin King. However, that's just basically a discrimination, because it's not true. They are elves. They are widely feared and hated even by other nations in the past, though nowadays they are more accepted, obviously. They do have they are prized for their craftsmanship and heavy armor, which they developed because of their belief in strength. In fact, the thing that most orcs, if not all orcs, revere the most is the Code of Malakath, which is an unwritten law, and it prohibits things like thefts and unwarranted violence, but it places a heavy emphasis on honor and personal strength in resolving conflicts. They also don't. It also states that imprisonment is not really a good way to think to punish people. Instead, people who break the rules should be forced to pay a blood price, which entails allowing the one they offended to spill their blood until the price has been satisfied. So, quite violent. The other, let's see. I think that's all here. Okay, so next up we have the continuation of the Falmer, in that in their attempt to survive the onslaught of the Nords that came after the Night of Tears, they try to find safety and protection or sanctuary amongst their Dwemer brethren, who were like, sure, we'll protect you if you take this toxic fungi, which will blind your entire race. Also, you have to become our slaves. Though that was not part of the deal, they were forced to become slaves anyway. And then the Dwemer used them for experimentation, which eventually led to a rebellion, of course, and then a war happened underground, which we discussed before. And eventually the Dwemer disappeared and the Falmer were left. Also, like the one snow elf that's left actually calls the Falmer the Betrayed, which makes sense, and it makes a nice distinction.
Yeah, there's like two they're brothers, and you can meet them in the Dawnguard DLC in Skyrim. And he calls the Falmer, like the Falmer. He calls them the Betrayed and a disgrace to their race and stuff like that, because they were weak and fled.
He never called them weak. He called them betrayed because they were betrayed by the Dwemer.
He said like they betrayed because their race, because they sought refuge instead of fighting or something.
No, I mean no. He was just in the. They were just like the part where he was from was just so separated from the rest of the world. They weren't affected by the war as much.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So that's the Falmer, the Betrayed, who have a sort of dried up skin. Their eyes are completely covered in like basically a sort of extra layer of skin. They can't open it.
Yeah, they're like overgrown.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like they just don't have any eyes anymore.
Previously, before the podcast, we compared them to the Nosferatu Vampire.
Yeah, basically.
If you are familiar.
They seem to almost have bigger ears than the other elves, which suits
they absolutely do. Actually, their ears are an alchemical ingredient in Skyrim. When you kill a Falmer, there is a chance that you're gonna find 1 to 2 ears surprisingly.
Well,
On them,
one or
and
two
you can
usable ears. I think that's the.
one or two usable ears. Yeah,
And
you can use them as an archetype.
yeah, exactly. And they
Also, we should mention the what's the name of the fucking insect? The horrible thing, Caurus or Caurus.
Caurus. Who knows?
Caurus. Yeah, the horrible thing that they breed, and the Caurus eggs are everywhere, and when it hatches, it's like this mosquito from hell that chases you around at the speed of light. Yeah, that's like Morrowind had cliff racers. Skyrim has Caurus.
Yeah, and spiders. So anyway, that's the Falmer, the Betrayed. It's if you want more information, we have a whole video on that as well. The other one we wanted to quickly mention is the Dunmer. You see, the Kimmer, like their Daedra Boethia, basically forced the Orsimer to turn into these green people. But the Kimmer themselves were also kind of naughty after the events of the Battle of Red Mountain, where the tribunal was like, yeah, we're going to become living gods. The Daedric prince Azura wasn't too happy with that, and therefore cursed the entire species to become these the ash-skinned, typically red-eyed elves. Turn them, basically Dunmer just means dark elf.
Yep.
And dark in this case has multiple meanings. It can be dark-skinned, but it can also be gloomy and ill-favored by fate. And the Dunmer actually liked this this idea, so they embraced this connotation with enthusiasm. Even they are very distrustful and almost hateful towards outsiders, very often at least.
A fun fact: the royal line of Dunmer, especially Queen Boethia, Queen Barenzaya, excuse me. We get to meet her descendant, Karlaya, in Skyrim. And Karlaya is the only Dunmer that has bright purple, almost amethyst-like eyes. So
yeah, it's probably a rarity.
Probably a rarity. Like maybe it keeps like with the bloodline, with the blue blood.
So yeah, the Dunmer are now like ash skilled, but they're basically like very dark gray, sometimes a tiny hint of blue in there as well. But
yeah.
That's a whole other
But video. Nothing, it was just a visual thing.
Yeah, I mean a visual thing, but also like their eyes became completely red, which is kind of a not just the color of their iris, but also the eye white is basically also.
Yep.
Everything became red. So yeah, and they have cool voices, but I'm not sure if that's a side effect of that as well.
That's probably thanks to the breathing in the volcanic ash.
Fair enough. Next up, we have the final versions of the elves, which previously mentioned, the Breton, which are, or the Menmeri, which are a mix between the old Aldmeri that tried to live in High Rock and the Needs that tried to live in High Rock. They kind of mixed and created a new race. That's why the Bretons nowadays sometimes still have a little bit of pointy ears. You don't see it as much in Skyrim, but it does appear in the other games.
Yeah, in the other media, you can see like little tiny spike at the pointy, just very slightly. But that's like the only thing that actually points to them as being like elf-like.
Yeah, they also have a better connection with magic than the other humans.
Yeah, they have a natural resistance to it. Yes. And they can like absorb it.
Yeah, and they also have affinity for learning spells, which is also a thing that we didn't mention. All the different kind of mer tends to have an affinity with magic. Different kinds of magic, but they all have an affinity with magic.
Yep.
I think the ones that have the least amount of affinity with magic would possibly be the Bosma.
Yeah.
But they still have
Dunmer are
destructive magic.
Natural when it comes to destruction. Altmer are really good at illusion.
Yeah.
The Bosmer are conjurers.
No, the Breton are conjurers. The Bosma are nature magic. Aliads were very good at alteration. Orsimer, I guess they also don't have much in the terms of magic.
Oh, the Orsimer, I think when the Altmers were changed to Orsimers, like not only like their looks but their physiology.
Yeah, it changed a lot.
Like from the bone up, like changed because elves are like viewed as these magical beings, like frail but like intelligent, and the orcs, well, they're orcs.
What's rude?
Like these rude. It doesn't mean there are like exceptions. True, and like it's a generalization, but anyway. It's video games.
Yes. Moving on, we also have the Maormer, also known as the Sea Elves, who went from Aldmer to the southwest and found new land there. These elves are also they have unique features where they have milky white eyes and a pale skin, and they tend to be very aggressive towards everyone who isn't Maormer.
Yeah, if you fought Aliads, are like with their Aliad. I don't know if you mentioned it, but the Aliads had something called flesh gardens.
Oh yeah, that's true. The flesh gardens, lovely.
As the name suggests, it gets bloody, and the Maormer are said to be way more brutal than Aliads. They are like. They enjoy torture and stuff like that, and
yeah, it's not even for gods; it's just for their own.
It's for fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And the pale skin is underplaying it. Their skin is said to be like almost transparent, and even like the Maormer are the elves that can change color, right?
Yeah, they like some say that there are certain Bosmer that can also camouflage themselves in the forests. Maormer can often become invisible with water.
Yeah.
So that's the Maormer, and then the last group of elves is the group of elves we know the least about, which they're most commonly known as the left-handed elves, sometimes also known as the Sinistral and despite their name, we don't actually know if they were all left-handed or anything. But what we do know is that they lived on Yokuda, along with the Yokudans, the Red Guards, basically. And they fought an epic war together for generations. And it seems that the remaining survivors of the Sinistral most of them died when Yokuda sank. And the few that survived it and made it to Hammerfall were quickly wiped out by the Red Guard there. And that's about it what we know about the Sinistral Elves, actually. There's no description of how they looked, though we can assume that they're probably not too different from the Aldmer. Maybe a bit more tanned, because, Yokuda was kind of hot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's about...
Like, imagine an elf that was, like, acclimated to live in a desert. So
we currently have about 17 minutes to go through the beast folk. So let's quickly go there.
A few lines for each.
Yes. All right. Your move first.
So let's start by the sentient races that we get to actually play as. First being the Argonians. Now Argonians hail from the province of Black Marsh. They are highly intelligent, skilled and versatile beings. I said that they are reptilians, but they have a very close connection to the histories in Black Marsh. Histories are also sentient, and the histories actually control the lives of the Argonians with their tree sap. They get to say where they reproduce, and actually histories change the Argonians to their liking. You can think of the Argonian as a blank slate, and the history like has a meaning for the Argonian, and it distributes a very specialized sap to change the Argonian to what needs to be done basically in the society of Argonians. They originally they lived in giant stone pyramids that extended all across Black Marsh, and some even say they were on the south of Morrowind. Their society eventually collapsed, and they have a full history full of violence, especially when it comes to the Empire. Next up, also I should mention Argonians have some subspecies based on the special tree sub. The most notable ones are Naga, which are aquatic based, almost look like fish people. And the next are behemoths, which look like the Amazing Hulk, but scary. Also, Argonians, even though they are reptilians, it is not known if they lay eggs or give birth. We get to actually find some eggs in Elder Scrolls Online, but that doesn't explain how they reproduce outside of Black Marsh, because the eggs are laid in the sap of the histories. So they are mysterious. Or their origins. Next are the Khajiit.
Yes.
The Khajiit are cat-like people who come from elsewhere. They are highly intelligent and agile. These traits make them very good thieves, acrobats, and stuff like that. They are fearsome warriors, and somewhat rarely they are also akin to magic. Now, their society is ruled by a Main, which is a special breed of Khajiit, because you get to be born as the leader. When a Khajiit is born, depending on the current moon cycle, they have a different Furstock, or a form that they take, ranging from the Alfiq, who look just like a normal house cat, but are especially akin to magic, through the Dagi or Kafai, who look like a fairy, basically. I don't know how to.
Well, basically, some are more humanoid than others. Others look like house cats, and others go all the way to oversized saber cats.
Yeah, all the way like to Senche or Sencheral, who are like elephant-sized cats.
Yes.
That the Khajiit themselves use as rides.
Yes.
Or like stock, which is kind of fucked up.
Pick up the pace a bit.
Yeah, pick up the pace quickly. Then we have the Limoulife. Limoulife are also hailing from Black Marsh. The Limoulife. Sorry, they are fox people, thought to be extinct by now. Then we have Imga. Imga are from Valenwood. They are also smart, but not that much. They like to
copy
play. Yeah. They like to role play as elves.
Also, they really respect the Aldmer and believe that they are somehow related to them. So they're basically Aldmer fanboys. They
are known to like steal their clothing and wear it.
Well, yeah, that, and also they try to talk very fancy.
Yeah, but they speak like monkey.
Yeah, exactly.
And last up, we have the Goblin King. The Goblin King are an unspecified. It's an unspecified term to refer to several different beast folk, including goblins, ogres, gremlins. Originally thought to be of elven origin, but that is wildly debatable. Also, orcs are sometimes
considered
brought into this.
Yeah,
I don't like it. What connects all of these is their not so high intellect, and
Basically, they
all worship Malakath.
They were smart enough to be used as slaves by the elves.
Yes.
And it seems that actually they originally only inhabited the Somerset Isles, but then when the Aldmer spread out, they brought along their slaves. And then now you find Goblin King everywhere. There's also the Reeklings on Solstheim, and the Rieker in Hrothgar in High Rock, that are also descendants.
If Goblin is a very universal thing, I guess you can imagine.
Yes.
So next up.
Yes, we have the Sloths, which are actually one of the extremely intelligent, sometimes more intelligent than the Mer or man races, which they're a race of slug-like beast folk that live in the coral kingdoms of Thras, which is southwest of Tamriel. Whether that's underwater or not is uncertain, but we do know that they can live underwater. They are very cautious and careful. They do not care about religion. They're very practical, but they will sometimes deal with Daedra if it furthers their goals. In fact, they actually they don't experience emotion the way other Tamrielic races do, but are often skilled at acting. They're also very well known to. They're very opportunistic. They follow rules as long as it helps their interests, and they are extremely good at necromancy. They are basically aside from Mannimarco, they are basically the top of necromancy.
Yeah, sometimes they are called the Worm people, and that's probably where Mannimarco got his King of Worms thing.
One of the things that they're
also they like to manifest bioweapons.
Yes, they basically are the cause of the Thracian plague, which wiped out almost the entirety of Tamriel, or half of it, and also led to the greatest unification, where all the races of Tamriel got together and fought the Sloth Kingdom. And since then, they haven't done anything too major, because, never again.
Maybe coronavirus.
Yeah, that's also another debate. Then we have the Lamia, which are a species of amphibious beast folk. They have a snake-like appearance, usually with the torso of a woman and the tail of a snake. Some of them are related to waters. Others are actually able to live in the deserts of Hammerfell, but they can technically live anywhere in Tamriel. Then we have the Nirn.
The Lamia's design actually changed drastically throughout the years, where originally it was just the upper torso of an actual woman with naked breast and stuff like that. And of course for online they look very, very snake-like, but for some reason they still have breast.
Well, they do seduce men. So, Next we have the Nadade, also known as the Water Spirits by the Red Guards, which look kind of like Mer and elves, and they're like feminine water spirits that live near bodies of water and can be heard singing angelic but transfixing melodies. They are practitioners of water magic, and they really like their water. They're actually very friendly. They even heal people, except when their water gets tainted, and they become tainted as well, causing them to basically take control of any humans. Basically, they become like tyrants if their water gets corrupted. And they are also known to seduce men.
There's a lot of seduction.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to continue with the seduction of men, there's the Nymph, which is basically mostly described as it looks mostly female and very beautiful naked women, though they sometimes are considered to have different lower bodies, like goat-like ones.
I mean, all of these, like the Lamia and the Nereid and Nymph, those are real life mythological creatures.
I mean, so the nymphs also have their own language, called Nymph. Then we have Harpies, which are also from Greek mythology, which are fierce, carnivorous, feminine humanoids with wings of a bird. They have a reputation as furious creatures who kidnap, mate with, and kill human males. So yeah, that's fun. They're mostly basically around the Iliac Bay area, which you can see on the map. But there are some and they're actually quite intelligent, though they are a bit aggressive. Except there's one group of them in the Hrothgar mountains who were so isolated from themselves. They have thousands of generations of inbreeding, and they've completely lost their glimmer of intelligence. And they also look more like birds than the standard harpy. And then the last one of that group is the Centaur, which, as you might know, is half horse, half man. They are semi-intelligent, and they are legendary creatures that are worshipped by some and despised by others. They're very ancient and mysterious, capable of sophisticated speech, and refer to others as mortals, which suggests that they have a long lifespan. They tend to be in High Rock, Hammerfell, and Valenwood. And then, next up. Tom?
Yep.
Oh wait, no, it's me again. Sorry.
It's you.
Yes, it's another species that went extinct. It's the birdman, who lived in Cyrodiil, all the way back in the Mirific era, I think, even. The Aldmer who explored Tamriel came across them, and the Aldmer actually taught them how to speak and how to write. So they must have had some intelligence, but later on, it was revealed that they had gone extinct, most likely due to the cat demons of the south, aka the Khajiit. So unfortunately, the cats hunted down all the poor birds. On the other side of the place to live, we have in the water. That was a terrible segue. We have the drow. How do you say that? It's
Drow.
They're an ancient species of aquatic octopus-like beast folk, commonly hunted for their hide and wax. There's two variants. There you have the water drow and the land drow. The difference is that the water drow have more tentacles for lower body, whereas the land ones have more crab-like legs, which allows
almost like centaur looking.
Yeah, basically.
The land.
And it's actually the water ones are considered more intelligent. The land ones are much more violent and aggressive. The water ones even it has been said that they had their own kingdom underwater.
Yeah, they had a kingdom, and Vivek actually he made a peace treaty with the Drew kings, and they attacked somebody. I don't remember who it was.
The Ruddy Man, I think. Not sure. Next. Now it's you.
Next, we have Grumites. Grumites are violent, primitive humanoids native to the Shivering Isles, which is the land of Sheogorath. They are amphibious, frog-like beast folk with a complex life cycle, beginning as eggs, then transforming into polywogs, which are basically the what you call it?
The babies.
Tadpoles.
Yeah. Toadpoles.
From the tadpoles, they change into something called a ballywog, which resembles. It's a mix between a fish, a frog, and a fed corgi. Then from that, they can either evolve into Grumite, which is the classic thing. They
transform into.
They're very goblinoid looking, and they resemble a frog-like humanoid, and they can, although they can grow to be somewhat human-sized, They walk upright on two legs. They have sharp teeth and a set of spines going along their back. Or they can grow to be a skeleton, which is a hulking, like a really big, like the concept art for skeletons shows them to be at least like 10 meters tall.
Damn.
Yeah, so they are these hulking amphibious monsters. And to me, it looks like they are some kind of guards, because they usually spawn like near the deep waters and near the last type, which is the spawn mother. And little is known about them. They possess 4 limbs and rows of colorful dorsal fins along their back. The spawn mothers are said to be truly gigantic creatures, towering high above even the skeletons. They're amphibious, but they appear to spend a lot of time under the water. So when they actually come up, they're covered with seaweed and corals on their body. And when they actually have to when they emerge, it's to lay eggs and to feast.
Yes, indeed.
So I don't want to meet that, because that thing, it's huge. And next up we have Minotaurs. Now, Minotaurs are the classic bullmen, beast folk. They are native to Cyrodiil, and they have a body of a man and the head of the bull, with the body being covered in fur. Also, they have hooves for feet. They are big, strong, brutish. They originated during the first era with the Saint Elysian Slave Rebellion and the Elysian Empire, where Morihaus, the winged bull demigod, actually bore a child with Elysia. The child was a man called Belharza, the first man bull, and from him all the other Minotaurs came to being. Originally, they were extremely loyal to the Empire, serving in their armies, but eventually they succumbed to their animalistic side and now are a rare occurrence, vile and brutish.
Mm-hmm. Then, as of the final one, actually, because we already talked about the frost giants, the final thing is the lizard bull, which is actually, there's very little known. They're quite mysterious. We know that they're indigenous to the islands along the coast of Piandonia, where the Maormer went, and they were accidentally actually discovered by during the Interregnum, when an ill-fated expedition came across them, led by the infamous Captain Wereshark.
That's a cool name.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool name. The thing is, we don't actually know all that much about their appearance as well. But what you do know is that they're extremely durable and very skilled at combat, because just 8 of them managed to defeat an entire Maormeri armada, and armadas are usually really big. Their level of intelligence is not exactly known, because the Wereshark's crew was never able to speak with them, because they were, kind of in the middle of a fight with them. But considering how capable they are in combat, and they actually made use of they're described as massive quadruple monstrosities wielding glittering tridents, shiny as the ones you'd see carried by some stuffy Aldmer Queensguard. And the fact that they're using glittering, shiny tridents means that they have at least some level of skill to forge these things, but also to use them. So they must have had some intelligence. I mean, taking out the fucking armada, no.
These may be the last ones that we talk about, but they are certainly not the least ones. There are a ton of species in the Elder Scrolls universe. that we have not talked about yet, ranging from sea drakes to the various Daedra.
Yeah, no, like what we mentioned, basically we've talked about the man, the humans, basically, the mer, and what is officially considered the beast folk. I'm not like. Let me double check what the official.
What is considered the beast folk is.
I think it has to be sentient.
Yeah, the thing
sentient
is that
and humanoid.
Men and mer, there's something that connects them, but with the beast folk,
I think a beast folk is just they need to be sentient and humanoid like. Like all of these species so far have had humanoid features.
Yeah, that's the key word features.
Yeah.
So that's the end of today's podcast.
Yeah, we're seeing the last few moments of you seeing the gatekeeper in the Shivering Isles.
Yeah, I'm just witnessing him and the elf saving Quinn. He is menacing. I am afraid to go for him. But what I have to say is, when I fought Umaril, because I'm somewhat high level, the Aurorans were scaled so high. A single Auroran was harder to beat than Umaril.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the scaling of leveling works like that. Which I've in my latest I've been playing Morrowind more and more, and I noticed that they really don't have any barely any leveling, which is great. As in barely any leveled enemies. It's just they're predetermined.
Yeah, it's all predetermined. Yeah. That means you can go anywhere you want. You're gonna get your Salatos.
Yeah. You can go anywhere you want. Let's go to Dagoth Ur from the get-go. So yeah, all these wild species. No, your recording is also finished, so I think it's a perfect time to end today's episode. Thank you all for watching, listening, whatever you did. And we will see you in the next one next week. Right? Let's see. Do I already have an idea for that? No, we do not. So we will. It will be a surprise for you what we're going to talk about, and it's going to be a surprise for us what we're going to talk about. So
we have to think of something.
Yes. But until then, have a good one. Bye bye, everyone.
See you. Bye bye.